The longer you watch Steven Seagal, the more you realize his entire existence is based around the fact that someone, somewhere down the timeline, fell for the hype he was constructing around himself. To understand how someone could believe a lumbering, self-important human walrus was the next dimension in action film star, you have to understand the period of history that saw his rise to fame. This was right at the height of the golden age of action movies, when Schwarzenegger and Stallone were still on top, when the world was willing to believe that sheer physique can equal ultimate badass. This was a time in the world when Black Belt magazine ran articles hyping the fake techniques and faker stories of self-evident idiot charlatans like George Dillman and Frank Dukes, while questioning the legitimacy of MMA as a real fighting style. This was also the late 80s and early 90s in America, and, well, frankly, this was a time when common sense and critical thinking took a backseat to being wowed by people who weren't really all that impressive, but were willing to claim they were and be an aggro dick about it. Steven Seagal is a marginal human being, functionally what it would look like if serial police impersonator Jeremy DeWitt was about 80 pounds overweight and willing to throw hands, as long as the person he's throwing them at is significantly smaller than him and not actually a threat. Like Jeremy DeWitt, he's also a sexual predator, who uses his projected stature and status as a means to facilitate his assaults. He's basically some gross shit you'd use a curb to scrape off the bottom of your shoe, if the shit could clumsily ambulate itself around when necessary, and was capable of speaking what like a white moron thinks a jazz man stereotype sounds like.
What's wrong with you, man? You're slipping. But you can't check your six.
So why am I talking about him at all? Because fuck him, that's why. After all he's done, after all the effort he's put into a career of rampant self-aggrandizement, the overwhelming body of work he's left behind him in the film genre amounts to about 200 filmed hours of watching a perennially out-of-shape action star trying to suck his own dick and fail. His attempts to hitch himself to brighter and more mobile stars all failed miserably, as his presence is overpoweringly and devastatingly awful funny, a functional answer to the question, how much human shit can you add to a stew before it stops being food and starts being a biohazard? How many Steven Seagals do you need in a piece of filmed media before it ceases being a movie and starts being a joke? Just one. Same as we ever needed.
Money now and a lot more when I get in that office. I can take that to the bank.
I'm gonna take you to the bank, Senator Trent. To the blood bank.
The movies he's in now can't be described as anything other than an ongoing series of scams, an attempt to sell an old collapsed house as premium real estate, or at least use his name to draw eyes to a product that wouldn't otherwise have any interest whatsoever. This is a common enough tactic in bad movie making, and he's not the only one to see a payday from it. But it's this ocean of fast-tracked and slapdash mediocrity that covers the seafloor foundation of his career, stuff that has basically been subsumed into the darkness of obscurity. It's the sort of thing that might give people cause to think, hey, I wonder if his early stuff was actually good. The answer is no. The longer answer is, Under Siege is good, because the presence of a higher quality of fucking nuts manages to successfully cut his overpowering flavor of ass. But otherwise, no. Y'all want proof? Here's Out for Justice, a film that exists and you can watch.
Benny! How you doing, buddy? I want to talk to your brother now.
He's gonna want to talk to you, his self scumbag.
What are you doing? You don't want to that, Benny!
Ow! Ow! You tell your brother I'm gonna cut off his head and kiss down his throat. Fuck you! Hey.
I'll do him whole heat and preach non-violence. He about to start speech, come on, silence.
This movie opens with a quote from Arthur Miller about the nature of how cities have cities within them, and the potential for multiple cultures to bloom within one and sometimes clash. This movie tries to have something to do with this quote. It does not succeed at it very well. Anyway, now Steven Seagal's gonna beat up a pimp.
Come on. Predictable. Too easy. I invoke the power of the glacial blade. Double Rebukem! I stay my house. Waits your brat.
Welcome to the formula of Steven Seagal. We witness jaded badass regard the world with his boiling disdain. getting a big ol' eyeful of his personal perspective of what the world looks like and what his view of justice is. Immediate, authoritarian, and fatally violent when disrespected. It's at this time that I'd also like to point out that Seagal himself is a known spousal abuser. He was also associated with the mob, who actually funded a few of his films and abducted him over a matter of money he was tangentially involved with. What I'm saying is, never trust anyone who frames themselves as a paragon who shines so bright as to say clean against the dirty, dirty world like this, folks. There is such a thing as virtue signaling in this world, and it's not publicly wanting queer people to be welcome in your community. It's getting a reality show to film your volunteer sheriff's department escapades while also being a tax cheat known for assaulting smaller co-stars. The plot involves the murder of narcotics detective Bobby Lupo over the fact that Bobby was having sex with the girlfriend of local crack-powered mob associate Richie Madado. Richie is not having a good day. Richie is not in a good place.
Oh no!
Richie looks like he's about to detonate.
Oh no!
There's neighborhood history between Bobby and Richie, as well as the improbably named Gino Felino, Bobby's partner, played by Seagal, who is now, by default, the man that's now gonna go kill Richie. Seriously, that's how this plays out. Bobby gets shot by Richie, who does it in broad daylight, causing the NYPD to show up and lock down the block. Call Gino, who then shows up and functionally declares himself the one and only man on a more or less official vigilante action sponsored by his fellow police. They all just go along with it. Even Jerry Orbach, who was in this fucking thing. You ever think about the things that we used to think were okay to cheer on in the movies? Like, look at this cop here. He literally walks up to give him a shoulder pat and be all, yeah, hell yeah, get his ass, murder him extrajudiciously, I love it.
Well, let me do it my way. You just give me an unmarked and a shotgun, all right?
Human beings like this man are the reason why internal affairs divisions exist. Also NWA. Also guillotine.
Screw this crap!
Crackhead attack!
I guess we can't be friends. Oh no!
We should also take a moment to point out that Gino has a wife and son in this movie, and that they're currently in the process of divorce. This isn't an important plot point, and these aren't important characters, but they do turn up in one of the movie's myriad action scenes, which is why it's important to just, make note of the one woman in this movie that's not here to be abused or murdered. Oh, there's also this puppy, which Gino rescues from traffic in a scene that reads like it was written while Seagal was concussed. Seagal names the puss Coraggio, which means, in Italian,
Courage, the Cowardly Dog Show! Starring Courage!
Please take note that it's here that Seagal petitions God himself for assistance in being violent.
Please, God, let me run into this guy someday.
Because this is a Steven Seagal movie, God will oblige his most holy of creations by the end.
No sleep till!
Oh wait, it's the Beastie Boys on this movie's soundtrack. Right there, you hear that? Seagal is using the Beasties as his entrance theme. Never mind, God is obviously dead in this universe. In record time, we've described the framework of this movie. I've already revealed the big mystery of the story, that Bobby was fucking Richie's girlfriend, and that's the reason why the murder happened.
Oh no!
I mean, sure, we can add in some additional detail about how Gino's such a massive badass. He, as a cop, could go tell a mob boss to his face, functionally, go fuck yourself. And the boss is just like, okay, man, hey, alright, fair enough. And then, because this movie is one of those movies written by a person who fancies himself upright and principled, but he's also got to be, like, cool and underground, he's got to go right in a bit about how even the fucking mafia is high-minded and principled, and is just outraged over all this senseless violence that is happening on the streets because of Richie. But don't worry, folks, like, the mafia is still bad. They're still bad guys. It's just that the cops have some bad guys on them, too. Like, the mafia has some good guys on their side, and it's...
You're still a dirtbag criminal.
Hey, Gino, you know how many cops I know that make my guys look like altar boys?
Ain't it the truth? Sad world we live in, huh? 9 years old. I'm looking at Pino and thinking to myself, my God, what a great guy. You prick. I always wanted to be a wise guy.
Open the fucking door. Open the fucking door!
look at us now under God. Who would have ever thought that I would have become a cop, huh?
Hey, Lucky, you know, maybe God's a puppeteer. And we're just on the end of the strings.
Yeah, but God has a strange sense of humor, you gotta admit.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
It's all shades of gray here in the real world of Steven Seagal, people. So get ready to cheer on this murderous vigilante cop who has pals in the mob as he proceeds to assault basically anyone that gets in his way and punctuates his public cockwagging with sporadic gunfire.
Vinny, tell them to get up on the footing.
Are you totally fucking nuts or what? You could have killed somebody upstairs. But there ain't nobody upstairs.
Case in point with our first real action scene, this mild sauce of a car chase that leads into a blade fight in an Italian butchery. Richie literally drives up and throws money at some rent-a-thugs, but Steven Seagal, the great white shark and apex predator of Brooklyn, instantly arrives on the scene to unleash flabby hell. Thrill as a pair of couches shaped like cars lurch around corner and struggle to make more than 100 wheel horsepower despite their massive engines, reminding you of the how and why Detroit's auto industry turned into a machine that only built worker poverty. But this is just merely mediocre. You can find this in any boring action movie from this era. To get that distinct Steven Seagal flavor, we proceed indoors, to a fight that can be described as Steven Seagal mutilates civilians in the thrall of the mafia. See these guys? They're mostly just workers.
Mario!
So of course, what does Seagal do when he encounters this spread? Oh, you know, just some stuff you'd see in the raid. Some, like, Evil Dead 2 things, you know, no big deal. This won't be the first time I point this out, but this is our hero, folks.
Good job, Ouija! Uh-oh.
My goodness.
And just for good measure, he makes the old guy practically hit a rail off his own revolver. It weren't enough to inflict a medieval injury on a delicatessen worker. He makes Pops go eye to eye with a .38 instead of just stripping the weapon. Want to know why people like John Wick as a person, despite the fact that he's an emotionally cracked assassin that's addicted to violence? Because if he puts a gun to someone's head, he shoots them as fast as they realize they're down bore. He doesn't traumatize them while swinging his dick like a ponytailed hog bloated from cocaine and male enhancement products bought from a night market stall. Did you notice the missing element here? The part where it seemed like, at any point, Steven Seagal was in peril. Yeah, get used to that. That's gonna be a recurring thing. Like right here, this fight in the bar run by Richie's little brother.
But just the same, you shouldn't talk so tough, all right?
Hey, my brother was here. You wouldn't talk shit like that.
Yeah, but he's not here. And you know why he's not here?
Why?
Because he's a chicken shit fucking pussy asshole.
You might be asking, what fight? Hang on, let me just fast forward through some more dick swinging. Just a little more. Dick swinging. Hang on. There. So this shit's just terrible, a prime example of what it feels like when there's no weight or gravity on the situation in a fight. Gino walked into a situation where he's massively outnumbered and is openly provoking a fight with everyone he encounters. This is stupid, but it's fine, because he's highly confident he can beat everyone in the room in a one-on-one fight, which he does, because they fight him one-on-one, because on this earth, goldfish walk among us on land wearing the skins of human beings. So I don't have to describe what goes on in this encounter in detail, or really any of the film's other fight scenes. The spoiler is, Steven Seagal wins. Flawless victory. So instead, I'll just relate to you folks a story from on the set of this film, of an event that supposedly occurred between Seagal and his stunt team. You see, Out for Justice featured stunt coordination by one Judo Gene LaBelle, an individual known for being a master of the grappling arts, one of the originators of competitive MMA, and a friend and training partner to Bruce Lee. If you look elsewhere in this movie, you can also see another friend of the departed Lee, Dan Inosanto, an Eskrima master and one of the first men to instruct the ways of Jeet Kune Do that wasn't Bruce Lee himself. Now Seagal, who is himself a whole galaxy of on-set attitude and behavior issues, is a man who's known for taking liberties with stuntmen. It seems the only way Seagal can get his fix of hitting people is when he can be assured that they won't hit him back. LaBelle took issue with this, given that Gene LaBelle is by all accounts a great man and doesn't stand for bullshit in his gym or on his set. Seagal, in a moment where his want to self-aggrandize superseded his own sense of self-preservation, boasted to LaBelle that he was the best fighter on set, that his mastery of Aikido had made him immune to being choked out and taught him techniques to escape any hold. He challenged LaBelle to just try and make him submit in a real fight. LaBelle, being a gentleman as well as a scholar, highly suggested that they not do this, but Seagal, a braggart and a fool, demanded it happen. So, they went to the mat, and Gene did what Gene does. He got Seagal's back and sank in a blood choke, just to the degree that someone would do in sparring. The sort of pressure that's unpleasant, but not actually cutting off the blood to the brain. A clear sign to someone smart and respectful of the rules of sparring to tap out. Seagal responded by repeatedly karate chopping LaBelle in the groin, to which in response,
Oh no!
LaBelle applied actual pressure to his hold, forcibly sending Seagal to dreamland and causing him to soil himself big style. This is, again, a story I cannot personally confirm, one that many say is true, and Seagal swears is a sick fabrication. That doesn't matter, because it's also a story that a lot of people have seen play out in a gym before. The hotshot newcomer learns how little they actually know by the old bull. It's why there's credence to it. So I just want you to keep it in mind through fight sequences like this one, and this next one especially. The role of Richie Madonna is portrayed by William Forsythe, an individual who has more than enough acting talent to be working elsewhere. There's a problem with him in this role, however. It's that, even though he's definitely not a small-framed man, he's also in really bad shape. Now, under no circumstances am I going to engage in body shaming. I'm simply going to say, here's what a fat person who can beat some ass looks like, across a few notable examples. This is not the look of a dude who can put his weight behind his fist. This is the look of a dude who doesn't intimidate me as much as concern me, in an empathetic way. This looks like a guy who might actually want to avoid exertion. But don't mind that, this is also our villain, and it'd be fine if he was just supposed to be an out-of-control violence freak using a gun as his turn-person-off remote. But no, this is a Steven Seagal movie, which means at the end, this guy is going to fight this guy. Folks, this is not a fair fight. This is not even close to a fair fight. This is some cruel and unusual punishment. Extrajudicial execution via blunt force trauma, and exactly one corkscrew. Yeah, take that, Pinot Grigio. Try putting that cork back in, fucker. You see what I'm getting at here? This is a human being using the end of a weak combatant's life to grow and flex his own ego. The act of beating a fat man to death slowly to exert superior masculinity and resume total control of his ultra-platinum epsilon male beast mode grind time lifestyle. And again, I say, this is our hero, folks. The guy Jason Voorheesing dudes who are most likely regretting not fucking off over to the shore for the weekend, instead of putting up with this unholy, coked up and armed hybrid of Chris Farley and Big Show, and his particular brand of esoteric bullshit.
Gonna be needing a new go-kart. Something with some stomp.
You see that, Seagal? This motherfucker's brain isn't working correctly, and you just stabbed it with a corkscrew. How's that supposed to help him? I think the brand of justice that you're out for isn't very reformative. Not very reformative at all. In fact, I may venture to guess that you're some kind of asshole. There's this principle in screenwriting called the save the cat moment, and it can be described in brief as a moment of relatable empathy or charity that adds a protagonistic quality to a character. If you have a moment in your script where your hulking muscle beast alpha of a leading man goes out of his way to rescue an adorable cat from a tree, you've just added a dimension of warmth and relatability to a dude who also eats green berets for breakfast.
I eat green berets for breakfast.
And it makes you want to root for that character, despite whatever violence and brutality you'll see them commit otherwise. Out for Justice attempts this, quite blatantly. Seagal doesn't save a cat, he saves a puppy. Instead of humanizing him, it just further exposes what a pork robot bastard man this character is. Steven Seagal is a baffling individual, a man whose outward performance is that of a principled valuer of justice, but whose active pursuit of those values results in him committing what probably should have been a felony animal cruelty via light armored vehicle rap. He makes films about the evils of corrupt societies while living in exile in the Russian Federation. Probably the quickest way I could sum up what this man considers ethical principles as portrayed on film can be found in The Glimmer Man, a film in which he supposedly portrays a principled pacifist who is returning to his fighting ways out of necessity, but who also keeps a razor gimmick credit card in his wallet. Excuse me? Pardon? You're a pacifist, and you keep this surviving edge weapon shit handy. Pardon?
Double rip bouquet!
But that's one easily identifiable specimen as to what this man thinks is acceptable behavior for a protagonist who's also got a sense of justice and principles. Out for Justice, however, is a complete fucking ecosystem of these specimens, a nightmare bacteriological soup of bad behavior that somehow this hellman thinks amounts to some sort of paragon material. Specimens such as assault with bodily harm to a subject in police custody, murder via defenestration to a subject in police custody, this parking job, discharging a firearm through the ceiling of a basement establishment. Seriously, even the shitheel gangsters point out how he could have killed somebody innocent extremely easily here. Victim blaming, elder abuse, victim blaming again, elder abuse again, mutilation of a civilian with a cleaver, elder abuse with a firearm, leaving an abandoned puppy loose in an unmarked police car during a vengeance run, without food or a bed.
Fuck you, Gino! I can't believe you're doing this.
I'm kind of disappointed. I thought you could get at least like 15.
Horophobia, literally gibbing a guy with a shotgun blast, the aforementioned execution via bullying, and whatever the fuck this accent is supposed to be.
And who's this one over here? Is that your girlfriend?
Every adversary is a destructible object, while every woman is something to be shaken until she cooperates, and this is a bully's outlook. Everything that is neither of those two is an object that can be had and used to facilitate the ends of this big, dumb human moose, a creature that's as ornery as he is territorial and directionless. To be clear, this movie is pretty much literally Steven Seagal pulling down trauma and damage onto the people that love him because of his overwhelming need to just murder one certain big fat guy. This is our hero of a film called Out for Justice, a complete and total asshole, shaped like this ponytailed construct of fleshy plasticine and cultural appropriation. And speaking of which... Steven Seagal plays an Italian-American in this film, one of New York's largest historical demographics. It's worth pointing out that Seagal himself isn't Italian. He claims people mistake him for Italian, which... okay, sure. But then you got him doing shit like this.
There was this old man who used to come to the neighborhood when we were kids. He was from the old country, you know. Carried an old school bell. He'd pull along this little sharpening machine operated by a foot pedal, right? And I remember all the neighbors used to come out to get their knives and scissors sharpened. Dime here, quarter there. But it was time goes on. People start buying like disposable scissors and knives and...
You prep him with this shit, yeah?
Yeah. The last thing I said to him was go in there and bomb.
Well, it fucking worked.
And it's like fucking tooth pain. And I get it, bro. I get it. Your heritage is a mixture of European. You're a dude caught by the backswing of the white supremacy. That same shit that gives you privileges in society has also robbed you of a greater cultural background. You don't have culture or tradition. You just have whiteness. Trust me, Unless you like being a racist shitheel who takes credit for the current state of society based on the fact that you live with a lack of melanin and think that this somehow makes you some form of chinless unicorn, this'll be a huge fucking bummer to you. The want to have a tribe is a deep pain. And everywhere you find communities of people, you find people that want to fit in but struggle to. And this hurts in a hell of a painful way. But if you've got that hurt in you, you don't fucking go and do this.
Huh?
Or this.
These people have a warrior.
Did you beat up on this little native man?
Or this.
This is my partner right here, Harlem.
Walks like a black man. Breathes like a killer.
Nice to meet you.
We're white, but we wanna be black. We're white, but we wanna be black.
The reality is, this is just the tip of the iceberg for this stench clown. This is the face of a man who thinks he can play dressing horse for a number of different ethnicities, all of which he is not. The man is not black. The man is not Chinese. The man may speak Japanese, but he is not Japanese. Ironically, he does claim to have some Russian in him, but then he goes and pronounces the name Vladimir like this.
Vladimir Putin.
He's also not First Nations, despite how hard he tries to force his ass into that seat. No.
What does it take to change the essence of a man?
I need time to change.
I do too.
Just... no. But here we go. Here's this dude speaking Italian, rubbing elbows all buddy-buddy with members of the mob and functionally behaving like a wise guy with a badge. I'm just going to point out that the original screenplay of this movie, entitled The Price of Our Blood, was rewritten entirely by Steven Seagal on the basis that the original screenwriter, John Flynn, quote, didn't understand Brooklyn. It's at this point that I'll bring up that Steven Seagal was born in Lansing, Michigan, and later moved to Fullerton, California when he was 5. Going beyond Out for Justice, it seems like the biggest event in his life that occurred in New York was getting called out for being the worst guest Saturday Night Live has ever had. So if you want to know what's informing this performance as a fiery, not-to-be-messed-with resident of the Italian hood in Brooklyn, it appears to be pure ego. In terms of authenticity, the man's a Jersey Shore Olive Garden. He takes folks' backgrounds and makes them into a hideous coat he can then stretch across his shoulders and drape his shabby form in. And once he's properly dressed, he starts brutalizing people in just the same old fashion. I'm not sure what he thinks he's doing when he does this. Maybe it's what respect looks like to him. I mean, if the coolest man in the world wants to wear your skin as a suit and murder people in it, that's gotta mean something, right? Right? Out for Justice was originally rated NC-17 for its violence, having a number of its more brutal scenes cut for international and video releases, only restored after coming to DVD. What was not restored to the DVD cut were scenes that Steven Seagal himself omitted from the rewrite of the script, scenes that featured and further fleshed out the character of Richie Madonna, who is otherwise nothing more than a crack-smoking violence cipher with a shitload of money to throw around and a small army of willing thugs posseed up with him, despite looking like his heart is about to violently explode at any minute.
Oh no!
This is because Seagal cut those scenes himself in the rewrite, as he felt that William Forsythe would upstage his own performance. Too bad it did anyway, because Seagal sucks that hard. Instead, we find ourselves at the end of a grisly road, littered with blood, corpses, mutilated bystanders, and traumatized victims. And this fucking loaf standing tall above all of them, while Greg Allman sings a soulful blues rock anthem about how Steven Seagal will totally wreck you if you get in his way. The hunger is for pork. But we're skipping straight to the credits, and I'd be missing the great big elephant in the room, which is this film's bookend, how the film chooses to remind you of what a heroic individual Steven Seagal is, by having him obliterate the nuts of a dude who looks like he's nearly 50 and roughly as out of shape as a flat tire.
You a tough guy, huh?
Tough guy? I'll show you how fucking tough I am.
This is the answer to Steven Seagal's prayers, a chance to be violent one final time to an inferior opponent. And hell, like I wouldn't aim to kick a man's heart out through his mouth via my foot and his scrotum if I caught him throwing a puppy into traffic. Ooh. But given all we've seen of Seagal and the depths he'll casually sink to in this movie, like the fact that he had the same puppy loose in his car while he was out turning 24 people into 24.5 coffins, it just comes off as a reach to rehumanize this hominid feral pig. We just watched this guy stab Crack Black in his frontal lobe with a corkscrew. Him walking into a Coney Island sunrise with his shell-shocked wife and a devastated wreck of a fat man moaning, "My balls!" doesn't feel like the closing of a man who is out for justice, but of a more persistent and competitive criminal predator having escaped it.
Jesus Christ, what are you doing like that? What are you sick?
You did the right thing, Frank. Tell the boss what you did. Do the ritual thing, huh?
Are you sick?
Just a little. Cheech, put him in a fucking trunk in Jersey.
Improper treatment of a dead body in the service of the mafia. But if film is an art, and art is a window into a creative spirit, then we need to treat ourselves as if peering through the looking glass into the opinions and ideas that Steven Seagal has inside himself. He looked at what he wrote, the things he had himself as doing, and decided it should be called out for justice. The mind reels. And yet, if you think this story of Steven Seagal playing a hyper-competent cop went in wrong and bizarre directions, just wait until you see him play a hyper-competent criminal who possibly knows magic.